Hey there, my name's Joe Keyport, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. For this week's episode, I talked to the band Eudaemon about their debut record, Spiritual Anguish, coming out on May 23rd. This black metal band kind of lives in the world of extreme music like you'd expect, but they pull from so many more different heavy genres than just black metal. There's screamo in there, there's some doom metal, there's a little bit of everything that this band is influenced in, and it kind of culminates in this really intense and cathartic release, building up to a 12-minute closer called In Mirrors. Along with this podcast, we had the chance to go film the band at a church in St. Paul. If you want to head over to our YouTube channel, you just search Ear Coffee over there on YouTube, you can watch the band perform 3 cuts off of that record, including In Mirrors, but only do that once you're done listening to the episode. It was a great time to chat with Eudaemon. We love them here on the podcast. It's Eudaemon, and they're right here on the Ear Coffee Podcast. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Right.
Super good.
And I'm glad to hear. I'm glad we didn't get swept away by the great April storm of 2025, and it was a bust here in the Twin Cities. But I want to first have everybody kind of introduce themselves quick so we can put some names to voices.
I'm Ella. I play baritone guitar.
I'm Miri, formerly Andy, and I'm vocals and normal guitar.
I'm Meridian. I play bass.
I'm Peter. I am the drummer.
Wonderful. One of the first questions I always like to ask bands when we join the show, which is kind of, how do you describe your band to people? Usually it's people who aren't in the know. It's like your aunt or your coworker, and they're like, oh shit, you're in a band? What's your band like? And what's that line?
Minneapolis emotional faggot metal, scare quotes.
I usually say blackened screamo, which is a point of contention in the band. We're screamoed black metal, but I feel like blackened screamo just like makes more sense. Like it's like people who have no idea are just like, okay, it's weird rock music.
Watch them glaze over.
You know,
and
exactly.
Like, is that like Metallica?
Yeah.
It's just rock and roll.
Everything's rock and roll.
What's the difference between black and screamo black metal?
That's an Andy question or a Mary question.
It's like really not like a real difference because like genre is fake, but like I just think that we're black metal influenced by screamo and not screamo influenced by black metal. Personally, I don't know, but like it kind of depends on whoever you show it to, because I've had so many screamo people be like, "Yeah, y'all are screamo," just depending on which recording they listen to.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I've always liked the emotional black metal like description of it. I basically the line I've come to is we're black metal influenced by post-hardcore and jazz.
Yeah, sometimes I say black metal and then pause and say black metal core.
Yeah. And then usually at that point, because they don't know what any of those words mean, they just kind of go, oh, okay, cool.
Oh, that sounds sick. Yeah.
It's better than the last one we were going with, which was like psychedelic,
psych freak out, ethereal black metal.
That was too much.
Kind of hard to fit on a poster with that one, you know, and describing the bands. With that kind of like how, not ambiguous, because I feel like it's just easy to be like, there's a black metal band with obvious. It's not, you know, I wouldn't, as someone who's not a native to the genre, I'd be like a black metal band, but there's more going on there than that. It feels like you guys are pretty able to fit on almost any bill. I don't see you guys relegated to like playing with just metal bands. You can play with like a punk band, you can play with like a screamo band, you can play with metal bands. And it's not always the case when I think of bands that kind of fit in the heavy realm of Minneapolis music, just because the scene seems so clicky when it comes to where you're looking at bills that week.
We're everybody who doesn't listen to metal's favorite metal band.
Yeah. I've like only ever played in metal bands, but never considered myself a metalhead. I've always thought of myself as like a punk. And I think that's like, it's just like who our friends are and everything. Like, and also the metal community just, I don't think it's like unwelcoming or anything at all. It's just like not really our people. You know, like we just fit in super naturally, I think.
Okay.
With this
It depends. Yeah, I mean, like some bands that are more just in the metal scene are awesome and cool, and we have great experiences with them. But yeah, I've never had like a horrible experience in like a purely metal show or anything like that. But I think that mixed bill and like punk influence bills are just like more fun, honestly.
Yeah, I'd agree. The mixed bills are super fun.
And I think there's like, even though we spent like kind of a long time making music in the metal realm, like in the last year or so, maybe more, like there's kind of a reason why we took to screamo and stuff, because that it's not just the music that like gels so well with like our sound, it's also just like the community and the way that like there's kind of an ethos to it as well. People maybe don't talk about as much as they talk about like the punk or DIY or hardcore ethos, but there is one in screamo, and also the demographics of screamo I feel like lined up really well with us, like as a queer band and mostly trans band. So yeah.
You guys have toured, right? Yeah, I was like trying to remember in the swamp that is my brain. Have you felt that when you all go on the road, that's kind of a similar vibe you feel when you leave the state or the Twin Cities?
Like more so almost. Really? I think because like we're meeting new people, it's just like a really concentrated version. You know what I mean? Like locally, it's like you meet maybe like 2 or 3 people at a show and you're like, oh wow, cool, I'm meeting new people. But when you're on tour, it's like you're like the celebrity coming through town and everyone wants to say hi and you're like, oh my gosh, there's like such a cool scene, and we're like kind of getting to be like tourists of like local scenes in other cities, which is really cool. And just from my experience from booking tours, there's like this whole national DIY network of DIY touring, which metal bands do too. But it's like so established in like punk influence genres, which is screamo. So it's just like way easier to like set things up. I've had some amazing like DIY promoters for metal, but usually it's just, you know, my friends will know some like, what's the transsexual screamo band in the city that I need to contact? And they're like, oh, it's this person. I'm like, cool. And then I message that person and they're like, here's your show. So that's nice.
And before we kind of start jumping into like the record and the band, I kind of want to ask kind of what was y'all's beginnings with music? What were kind of got you into not only being a music fan, but being a performer as well, and someone who writes music? So kind of how did y'all like individually get started? And
I guess I can pretty much summarize mine with like, I listened to the local radio rock station a ton in elementary school and middle school, and really it was funny because I was just like so fixated on the sound of a distorted guitar, and that would be like my North Star, you know. I would follow that wherever. So it's like the records or the artists that I got into are really funny because it's like sometimes they wouldn't have much in common outside of just like a really cool sounding guitar, like Power Man 5000 or like, you know, Nickelback, Linkin Park, Metallica. And so I was like, okay, I need to be able to make this sound on my own, and got into playing guitar at the end of middle school, formed my first band in freshman year of high school, had a couple failed projects in high school, but you know, that's when I started like really grinding away at guitar, and then honestly, like by the time college started, I pretty much gave up on music altogether. Like I spent several years where I like barely picked up a guitar at all. And it wasn't until I met Miri, and like the second time we hung out, she was like, do you want to join this black metal band I'm starting? And I was like, okay, yeah.
Sounds sick. Yeah. So shout out the first and probably only Power Man 5000 reference that the podcast will have.
Yeah. I guess mine was kind of weird because I was not really a metalhead until, I don't know. I kind of was like, I started liking metal and then I started playing guitar because of that, and like all the like metal bands on Guitar Hero and stuff, and like Mallcore. I was on another podcast where I talked about Guitar Hero for like 20 minutes, but so I won't do that here. But I like the standard metal, thrash, that kind of stuff, and I started playing guitar and like trying to get like good enough to like, you know, play like speed like solos and shit like that. But I kind of got out of that because once I got like more serious starting learning guitar, then I got into like jazz, and then I like got into like indie rock, and like that's kind of all I did for like a really long time. But then I got back into metal in college, listening to black metal bands that sound more like us. So like Deaf Heaven, like Liturgy and stuff like that. So I've always, I don't know, that's kind of like, you know, I basically started liking that style, and I'm like, I want to make that. And that's what I'm doing here.
My dad would always play like post-punk bands, you know, like Sisters of Mercy and like the Pixies and kind of stuff like that. Hell yeah. We've talked about this before. And that kind of like got me into music a little bit. And then I joined school band in middle school thinking that it was like, you know, guitars and stuff. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm playing saxophone now. And I did that for like 9 years. And I got really into Charles Mingus. And then I smoked weed and turned into a huge burnout. And that was how I got into like metal and punk and stuff. And I was like, oh, I like cool jazz and like noise music, and I love getting really, really, really high. And I was playing in a band before I graduated high school that I still play in, Strange Frequency, also with Miri. But Miri wasn't in that band yet. And then I was just like in the scene, and that was how I met the Eudaemon folks and joined the band after it started.
When are we gonna get the saxophone feature?
Oh my god! I sold my saxophone to buy a guitar. That one.
I mean, worth, but
it was worth.
You should find one.
I have an alto sax kicking around somewhere.
I bet you could borrow one too.
Yeah, definitely.
Barry sax.
Barrys are fucking expensive.
They are.
Yeah. I played Barry sax in school for like. I almost went to college for it. I did, and then I dropped out like super fast. Record college dropout speed.
Yeah, like I've always, you know, resonated with music ever since I was a kid. Probably always having a song going through my head when I shouldn't. And
never shouldn't.
Right, I don't know. Even when something else is going on, I'm just like do. And then I don't know. I joined band in elementary school, and then you couldn't play the drum set, and I was pretty upset about that. So then I quit that, and it wasn't until I was like excited about music in general until I had a friend who was super into it, and he played guitar, and it was just drums and guitar, instrumental band. And super into metal, so that's where I started like doing blast beats and stuff back in like, you know, 9th grade probably.
Okay.
And it was mostly just because my friends were doing that. I was like, yeah, this is sick. And then I just, I definitely had some people being like, won't you grow out of this, you know? Kind of. I was like, here I am today. No,
Not yet.
Not yet, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So then when did Eudaemon form? What year was that?
September of 2023.
So true.
We did not exist before that.
Won't question it. All right. So your debut record called Spiritual Anguish is coming out on May 23rd. How does it feel to be putting this release out?
So psyched.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk about writing the record, because kind of looking through some of the discography, there's some of these songs seem to have existed for a little bit, maybe not crazy long. But talk to me about when these songs started forming for y'all as a band, and the writing process.
Yeah, so like, even though we've had a couple releases before this, it was still kind of like a first release in the way that some of these songs had been around for a bit, or they had been like in the works or whatever, just kind of hanging around. Like Karst was, I remember like being in practice, I don't know, like a few years ago, and when I came up with the riff, and it was like the band was a different band at that time. Like but like, you know, some of the other songs were like, you know, immediately preceding recording, but it also kind of varies like how they were written, you know. Some were written like together, and like a couple were like just literally Miri just like banged out this fucking instrumental, and it was like we were all like, yep, no changes to that. Like that's pretty much awesome. And then we just kind of learned it as is, and then Miri added lyrics or whatever. So yeah, it was definitely kind of a mix of approaches, I think.
Yeah, so let me just go through the track list. Possession Audition, Ella wrote the whole thing.
I think that might have been the first song where I was in the band that was the oldest song, because a couple of those songs predate me.
I think Karst and Basalt are the oldest.
Yeah, well, no, but I mean, yeah, but those songs predate me, and I think that was the first one I was part of.
Yeah. Like, and then that one Ella wrote completely, and then I completely wrote Basalt and In Mirrors, and then Karst and Silt and Hallways were like written together. Like a lot of those were like your riffs, but like we wrote finished them together like in the practice. Whereas like
that was kind of
I like got in a mood on some Friday and spent like 10 hours in my room writing it. So.
We didn't really practice last summer at all. We kind of took it off, and like when we came back to practicing, like Mary just sent this like 12-minute thing, and we were all just like, oh.
I think,
and then I was like, we are playing this for the next show.
And we did.
Yeah, and we did. And it was, I mean, honestly, it was really fun just like figuring out what we were all doing. Because I mean, it was like just like scratch tracks, of course. It was like the structure was like all there, you know? But like figuring out like exactly what was happening for individual parts was like really fun, and like hearing that come together. And honestly, even now, this is kind of true with a lot of the songs. There's like a couple things that I'm like doing now that I wish that I had done when we recorded it, because a lot of these songs are just like evolving.
Sure.
You know?
Why did this part happen 6 months ago?
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I still love the recorded version. I'm just like, I think part of it is like, when you record something, you have to listen through it so many times. You start hearing the things that you're like, oh, I could change that, you know? Like,
so that's why everybody needs to come to the new shows and, you know, hear the new riffs with the old songs.
There is a reason to attend a Eudaemon concert, and that is to hear the variations that we put on the songs.
Or we might just play them wrong, and then you get to hear a special version anyway.
Can you play your own song wrong though?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Challenge accepted. If I were to put the In Mirrors song in a negative light, I would say we were all so focused on learning the song as it was, and like using 100% of our brains, that we didn't get to change anything about it. But honestly, I don't think I would have changed anything about it, because it is so epic. Also, like in terms of who wrote what, the only notable exception for like lyrics on the album is like I wrote the lyrics to Hallways. But yeah, I don't know.
You wrote most of those riffs for Hallways, didn't you? I know you wrote the intro one. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it was just it's kind of like arranging it together and stuff. Yeah, that one was it's unnecessary information, but maybe some people think it's fun.
Thank you.
That what?
Thank you.
Oh yeah,
Appreciate it.
No, I love fun facts. That one was like the primary influences for that song when I wrote the main riffs were Newfound Interest in Connecticut and the band Senza. Which are like not the same, but like
Yeah.
Shout out Sensa.
True. So true.
So was the process still pretty collaborative, despite like whether it was Miri or Ella just kind of having a structure already put together, was it still pretty collaborative for everyone to kind of put in, or was it
I definitely
more like,
think so.
like the songs are here, I'll just figure it out maybe where to add a flourish here or there?
I would honestly kind of go against what Ella said about In Mirrors. That wasn't my experience, like about like not like I feel like there's like parts of In Mirrors where I'm just like fucking around for like 3 minutes. Like it's like
Fair.
it's like there's a key and I'm just like I'm gonna shred bass a little bit here. Like I feel like that part of why that song was so fun is it like there's so much room and it's so long so that like you can really explore within something. And I really, and that's also why like a lot of those songs are still changing. Like it's like the riffs were written and the arrangement, there is a little bit more collaboration on the arrangement than the riffs, but like they were mostly arranged like independently, but like figuring out like I guess just like voicing and like specific parts and harmonies was all super collaborative and like stuff that we did in practice.
Yeah. And then I do want to ask lyrically, we don't have to like obviously like a line by line like song breakdown, but listening through the record, it seems like a lot of these songs really deal with kind of decay and loss and at times reflection on kind of the state of those things, kind of what was going into the lyrics on this record.
I can only write lyrics about things that are bothering me, and Eudaemon especially is like my band where it's like everything is going horribly wrong. That's what the lyrics end up being about. I mean, a lot of them are just kind of vague, vague feelings, like sentiments. Some of them are more like pointed subjects. Like, I mean, like being a trans person in 2025 is kind of a nightmare. I love being trans, but like it is kind of a nightmare. So like a lot of it is like about that kind of stuff and the world in general. The only one I guess I can let Ella talk about Hallways, but In Mirrors is specifically about our friend that died. That's the one that has like a way more specific topic, but yeah. We love you, Piper.
Yeah. I guess with like Hallways, it was, I mean, pretty thematically similar to a lot of the other stuff, but it was also just, it was kind of about specifically the something that I don't necessarily see people talking about as much, but that could be on me or whatever. But in terms of being trans, when you kind of transition and start like living as your more authentic self, it was almost about like kind of like mourning your previous self, because it like not a lot of people think that way for obvious reasons, because it's like your new life is better and you feel better about being yourself, but even if that is the case, there's like kind of a moving on from something that you have been cultivating like your whole life, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And then I was also like, I had just finally read House of Leaves, and something, I don't know, it would kind of influence like the tone of it, and just like kind of the imagery that I was like thinking about when I wrote that. So
yeah. What kind of catharsis do y'all feel playing, heavy music about, such intensive topics and such personal topics to y'all? Because I feel like going up on stage and then performing some of these songs with these lyrical topics must provide some sense of, I don't know, what would that provide for you, or how do you feel doing that? I should ask, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know if I would be able to elaborate other than just extreme catharsis, because just like a huge like spew of emotions being released every time, and when you're performing, you're having fun and like just letting everything be intent and getting into it. So yeah, it just feels really cathartic.
Does that, for Meridian Peters, that kind of playing heavy music in that way, especially such like physically involved, like heavy music, like watching y'all perform, you're very physical in how you are on stage. Does that something like translate to you or spill over to you, or how do you feel when?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for like, singing the same lyrics for show and just being put on stage and you have to say those same lyrics every time. That brings you back into this space. But for drums specifically, like, it's really a really good outlet. Like, it puts any of those negative feelings and emotions into kind of exercise on my part, and it feels good. Like, I don't know, I like it. And then hearing just us all together, and we might kind of lose it for a minute, then we all find one eventually during the crazy crusty blast sections.
Yeah.
And I'm looking through my sweat at one of y'all to figure out where we are, and we do it, and that just feels so good.
The somber blast.
Yeah, during our somber blast. Yeah, that really. And then as compared to earlier in that song, Blast 1.
Yeah.
Versus Somber Blast.
Real one sleeping on Blast 1.
Yeah, I mean, like, I kind of what you said about like working out or like exercise is like super real. Like, I don't really do very much physically in my life. Yeah. Like, and like I can be like pretty like detached, I think, with a lot of things. And like, I don't really like performing with like bands is like the only thing that I go fucking hard for. I don't leave anything behind when I perform. And like, that is like a manifestation of like where I'm at emotionally with a lot of this stuff. I think it's just like I'm like a super like anxious and overthinking person in so many ways, but like when I'm like performing and like really locked in with a band, like
we can show up and let it out.
Exactly. And it's just like I'm fully there and I'm fully present, and like that feels awesome. And like I wouldn't, I don't know, it's like that's like its own kind of release. Like, and especially like why, like it's like, I mean, earlier I joked about like not considering myself a metalhead, but like I'd never not make heavy music for that reason, like
I guess just that kind of reminded me of like the first ever Eudaemon show that we that the band played, which was I guess like 1.5 years before the band was formed. For
the cultural formation of the band. Yeah. What's the asterisk we put on that one?
Yeah. I remember being like on stage because, like I mentioned, like I had basically like given up on music before this band, and like to be playing in this band was like to be doing what I had wanted to do for like a decade plus finally. And I remember being on stage and like being really nervous. And then like part of the way through the set, I was like, what am I doing? Like being nervous. And I'm just going to let it all go. Like, I don't care if I look stupid or whatever. I'm just going to like rock, rock the fuck out and and just like let the music basically guide me. And that was pretty much, that was kind of like a guide for how I like wanted to feel at every future show. Kind of the way that I put it into words eventually was like, this is just like a mantra to myself, not necessarily reflective of reality, but it was like I think about it like all these people are here to see me, and if they're not, then fuck them, and like that, not in like a selfish way, but like in a way that just helps me get rid of all the anxieties. Well,
that's how it's like as a performer. I've been like on stage like, oh, this is for me and the band I'm with, like the people in the crowd. It's cool they're there, but like, oh, fuck them. Not actually, but like,
and then once the set ends, then it's like then reality comes, or all the other people that you actually just performed for comes fading in, and you're like, okay, it did go well, they did like us, whatever. So
and one of the songs I did want to ask, I know we've talked about In Mirrors a bunch, but I did want to ask about that. Was that an intentional like 12-minute, you're like, all right, I'm gonna write my epic, or was it just like a song that once you started going, you just couldn't figure out how to land it until you're like, all right, we're 12 minutes later?
Honestly, I got into like a trance writing that song, so I don't even remember. But like, I did want to be like, well, Peter wanted to blast for a really long time for a song, so I'm going to make this blast really long.
So
and then like just all the parts, just like
Peter.
all the parts like that I thought like just flowed well and together, and I'm like, oh, it's 12 minutes, nice.
Also, Miri had been talking about and wanting to write a long song for a long time, and I got so fed up that I was like, all right, write your song and I'll learn it. Like that was like another, like, I'm putting it in a negative light again, but like, even though I do love that song, but it was like, okay, I've written some of the shorter songs, like, let's do a longer song.
I love long songs. I don't know, like, everybody's like, oh, I don't want to learn a long song. It's like, this is black metal. Like, let's have all the songs be 10 minutes long. That's like my opinion, but I guess.
Yeah, long songs are sweet, but then we were playing like one or two.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
That's the ideal set.
Really short. I'm cool with that too.
The ideal set, 2 songs.
the Warren Mantle set.
Shout out Warren Mantle.
And so for this record, you went into the studio with Adam Tucker at Signature Tone. What was that recording process like? Was that the first time this band's kind of been in a studio setting like that, or
that kind of studio? Yeah, like I guess at least with me. Like we recorded a couple of the songs that are on this with Kaylin from Briefly Gorgeous. Is it Girder or Grider?
Grider.
We recorded with Kaylin Grider, like in her like practice space.
People's
studio.
producer.
Yeah, the People's producer, and it sounds great, especially for like what it is. But like going into like a crazy huge studio with like this like separate control room and like gear straight out of a like show us your junk, like checks video
you feel like
or
you're in a rock
whatever,
documentary, you see the wall
exactly.
compressors.
It's like an 80s guitar player magazine advertisements.
Fretless T40 save me.
That was unreal. All the amenities. Which snare drum do you want? Here's 20 choices. Oh, we can record your guitar through 4 different amps individually, and we'll pick which one we want.
I also, the reason I have a PV VTM 60 is because of Adam Tucker. Like I spent all weekend just like playing around with it, and he saw that and he was like, all right, this is like this is kind of like your amp, like let's work something out. But yeah, no, it was the first time like the band had been in like a like purpose built studio, and like it was a super good experience. Like we love Adam. He's such a nice guy. And he just like is so stoked about making stuff and recording people.
They had Marvel vs. Capcom 2 in there.
Hell yeah.
Adam's number one chiller.
Yeah, he's awesome. I stayed with him, like just me and him, until like 9 p.m. perfecting bass feedback tone.
That's awesome.
I'm just standing in front of a 610, plugging in different pedals and standing in different positions. Like, is this good? Like,
Got to get the perfect feedback. This is permanent.
Adam and I understand each other.
But he really knows what he's doing. So it was nice to just go in and be like, I trust you. Just do it.
Yeah.
Like so many times he's like, do you have like pedals or like whatever tones that you're like really particular about for your sound? And I was like, I don't know. I'm stupid. Like you should tell me what to do. You know about this. And it worked out. I don't know. I really liked.
Yeah, that was great.
Really,
Even just like
really
the editing part, you'd be like, that part that's like do 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 do. Oh yeah, so here and here, right? What do you want done to it? And then just did it in 2 seconds.
Yeah. And it was great just like having the 3 days and like, not like having it drag on forever like past experiences when we're doing it by ourselves. It's just like we get in, we bang it out, it's done. And it was right after tour, so we're like blocked in.
Yeah, that was like a crazy month, but like I felt like a certified pro. Like, like going on tour and then coming back and then just like spending 3 days in this like wild studio, just like making this like awesome record. Not to pat ourselves on the back, but like
you should.
It's an awesome record. You should listen to it.
Oh right, we're goated.
It's so true, actually. But yeah, like doing that was like a real like, damn, I've been playing guitar for like a decade for this. It was a real moment of realization. So like,
yeah, I will say like to Meridian's point about like being locked in after tour, that was like such a crazy feeling. It felt like in a video game, like you hit your limit break, like you've stored up like all your potential energy basically, and you're just waiting to unleash it. Like I'd never been at that level with anything where I could, just because we played the songs every night, and like it was a really, really good feeling to like to be it felt like accomplished. It was super cool.
Awesome. And with this release, you're also working with 2 labels to put it out. Which labels are those, and kind of how'd y'all get connected?
Yes, Riff Merchant and Fiat Productions. Did you want to say something? Okay. Well, we just know Chris from Riff Merchant from just being around the scene in the past, and our friends have put stuff out on Riff Merchant. Chris just hit me up and was like, I want to do a collab with Fiat, like Eudaemon should do it. And I was like, well, we have an album that we're going to record. So it just kind of worked out really well.
I met Chris in like 2021 or something, volunteering at Extreme Noise because he brought in Green Machine Records on consignment. And I was like, why are you consigning these? This band, like this album came out in 1995 in Japan. Like, what? Like, how did you make this?
Yeah.
And then he like they told me about like Riff Merchant and stuff. And like, I've kind of known Chris and like been talking to Chris and like wanted to put something out with them for like since then, but it just like didn't work out until now. And like Eudaemon is like the perfect fit for that collab specifically. I think like a lot
of our friends are on Fiat also.
Yeah.
And yeah, the vibes are perfectly matched.
Yeah, it was like a really awesome thing to have that kind of locked in, the way that it just kind of came together, have it locked in before we went in to record, and just like know, okay, yeah, there's going to be a release, there's going to be like physical copies. Like I know that even when I get the vinyl copy, like I'm still not going to believe it. I mean, you know, but I mean, even though it's like 2 DIY labels, it's 2, I don't know why I say it that like it's a bad thing, but like it's 2 DIY labels that I really respect, and I think they do awesome stuff. And I was just like, the whole time I was like, oh, I bet it's going to fall apart. Like, I bet it's not going to happen, you know, because it did feel like so cool and so right, you know.
Same. And like them putting out vinyl and stuff and paying for that, I was like, what? This is crazy. This cannot be real. You know.
And just like so many like artists I already love being released on those. And it's like, it's DIY label, so it's not exactly the same, but it's like our label mates.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's not like we have like a contract or anything.
Yeah.
So like, I won't get into that.
I got a recipe for cookies from Fiat on the fridge right now. You guys got a couple hours. I'll make some for you.
Also, by the time this releases, I'm sure the Lust Hag album will be out, so go listen to that. Shout out Eleanor.
Jinx.
I only got a few questions left for you here for the podcast, and this is one we always like to ask bands, and this is if you've listened to the show before, we always ask kind of what's your local favorites that people should know about, it can be regional too, you know, like either your friends' bands or just like bands you think are cool. Sometimes people quick run to their Spotify playlist because a lot to think about right at once, or the weird pressure of like, I gotta remember now a couple bands. So who are those? Who are your local?
I want to shout out the Ear Coffee 2024 records of the year, local releases of the year, just like all of them back to back. Let's see. We got Fend, Malamiko. I can't remember. There was another like
Heat
incredible.
Lava.
I'm sorry.
I'd have to pull up my own article and remember what I wrote for that.
I guess Miri's other band is okay. Like. Pointless Animal, fucking awesome. Ray Gun Youth, really, really good. I don't want to hog too much of this.
Lover Girl, Screamo, Acrimo. I guess like just bands that trying to think of bands that we've had just like lots of like relationships with, like musically. Corridore from Madison. Yeah, we have musical relationships.
Shout out Malamiko, shout out Lover Girl. Shout out Surly Girly.
Yeah, Corridor from Madison, Ehrlich the Homies.
Yeah, I mean not fully like local, but there's like kind of a mental list I keep of like the bands that are like sister bands to Eudaemon. One of the members of Apathy kind of like got that term in my head, but Apathy from Chicago, fantastic. Like Mary said, Corridore. Another one is a band called One with the Riverbed from Michigan.
They're so good.
And they were like maybe the first band I ever saw to be like, holy shit, like somebody is doing like a very similar thing to us.
For
and
real.
It does have like kind of a like, if you know like all the influences, if you know the sound, it's like a pretty intense like sense of recognition in there. The One with the Riverbed is fucking awesome.
Shout out the PV Basement.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We haven't talked about PV yet, and I'll try to keep it short. I definitely bonded with Jared from One with the Riverbed over PV gear, and he has an entire basement full of vintage PV gear, including like the 70s big studio mixing desk thing with the gigantic knobs. I was like, I love that you have this beautiful home so that you have space to like save this beautiful, horrible piece of eldritch technology. And he even also like at one point like scouted out because he knew I was looking for a second PV band at one point. He scouted one out on Goodwill on the website, and like I bid on it and won it and for a good price and picked it up locally. So yeah, shout out, very good guy.
She pee on my V till I amplify her.
Also, I just wanted to shout out Ashbringer, since we've done stuff with them, and also very similar to us, locals that have been going forever, and they're awesome. And Melpomene, which is not a new band, but newly local, so people should check them out.
I forgot to say Another Heaven earlier, but I listen to them like constantly.
And all the bands on our release show.
Yeah.
Another Heaven, Valeska.
Oh my god, Anita Velveeta.
Anita
Mold.
Velveeta.
Also, can I just say, Mold and Valeska are like sisters to me.
Yeah.
Valeska Sir would be a beautiful name for a girl.
Like how Mold has grown, because the band I was in played a random basement show in an apartment when they were just like kind of like a Dinosaur Jr. adjacent kind of band.
That's crazy.
Like,
what?
So it was like a bunch of like random indie bands.
They should bring that back.
And like Mold. And then I saw them perform at a Screamo Wednesday, and I was like, this is not the same band.
Dude, okay, not even a band. I already shouted out Pointless Animal. Shout out Juno. Shout out Thumper. Shout out Haze Gazer.
Quick back to Valeska and Mold. They got a super project going on with Linus, the drummer from Linus too. It's called Prosthetic. They play like one show.
Breaking news.
It's like a doom noise.
Okay.
Or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Ooh, I just forgot.
That's
My bad.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna. Shout out Silo. No, I love Juno.
Fuck Juno.
I come and bug Juno as often as I can at Pillar. And now I've been usurped by Miri because Miri doesn't have a job anymore, and so she just goes in every day.
Ruthless.
I was trying to riz up Juno, but anyway, shout out Silo, just the homies. I'm technically in bands with two of Silo's members now because I'm a sloppy seconds kind of girl.
Technically.
Yeah. I seriously, I love those guys so much. They're so sweet, and seriously one of the best bands that I've ever seen. And like pretty much everything in that sphere, like 12th House Sun is fantastic as well. Like I said, I forgot what I was going to say before that, but shout out Silo.
Shout out Pillar Farm, Rage and Reset Fest, and all the bands on that. That was sick. Which is once again kudos to Juno. We freaking poached her from Michigan.
To set
100 million transsexual women to Minneapolis.
Immediately.
To second what something Meridian said earlier. I do think Disc by Fend is pretty much the greatest album ever recorded.
Yeah, Minneapolis or not, it's just the best record ever.
I have a disc of Disc.
I do too.
Just got it in my car. Yeah, Ella bought it for me.
That's romantic.
What is more romantic than buying your partner a disc?
So true,
Just
actually.
saying. And you should buy a disc. Eudaemon.
Good point. Yeah, wow.
A bigger disc
Honestly,
made out of vinyl.
If you need to break up with your partner, I think you should buy a Eudaemon record and be like, "Hey, I'm really sorry.
I really like you. Here's Disc by Fend.
Yeah,
hey, I don't think it's gonna work out. Here's Spiritual Anguish by Eudaemon.
Yeah,
You're gonna need it. You're gonna need it.
Breakup album of the year, even though we're all in happy, beautiful relationships. We're the most wiped up black metal band ever.
That's straight facts, actually.
And then finally here, how can people keep up to date on all things Eudaemon? Where can they go to see what's the next shows, where they can get the record, all that good stuff?
A bunch of websites owned by fascists.
Okay, well, unlike Miria, I don't like fascism, but yeah, Instagram Eudaemon Band, Facebook Eudaemon Band. Yeah, it's not. Yeah. Also follow Undercurrent MPLS on Instagram or wherever else you are, because that's another important shout out. They're not a band, but
Gravy and the crew does a lot of important work.
Gravy and the crew.
So true.
Like literally, like I go to Chicago or other cities and I'm like, how do they even know? Like it's like, how do they know what's going on? It's like, it feels like pre-internet, you know, if they don't have something like Undercurrent, like organizing and posting all the shows and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, shout out Undercurrent.
If you're not on social media, which you shouldn't be, you should like check out the Undercurrent Google Doc, because that's a thing.
That's slept on, but I use it all the time.
Nobody knows about the Undercurrent Google Doc, but that's the real shit. Sometimes when I get bored and I want to like look at social media, I just scroll on the Undercurrent Google Doc, and then I don't go to shows.
Wow, that show on a Wednesday, 2 months looks really cool.
Exactly. And then
Undercurrent should get like the movie theaters used to have, where you dial a number and it would just list all the show times. It's just
honestly, somebody needs to reach out to Gravy about that. Like
you text the number and it sends you 1 million text messages.
Text stop to reply. Okay, seriously, gonna reach out to him about that. The Undercurrent text alerts would go crazy.
We are also on Twitter and Blue Sky. I just said that. If you're a nerd, go on Blue Sky, I guess.
Well, cool. Well, the album, again, is called Spiritual Anguish. It's out on May 23rd. Thank you all for coming on the show.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's an honor.
You have been listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and share so we can stand out against the sea of other music podcasts. You can find information and other important links in the show notes of this episode. If you would like to support us, please consider subscribing on Patreon for early access to live sessions and other bonus content. You can also subscribe to our Substack for a regular newsletter with reviews, ramblings, and anything else we have to say. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.